Alright, well that pizza boy guy has made another video with his, anchovy brain. His skanky little anchovy brain. Another propaganda video. That's really the only thing it could be called. It's a propaganda video. So I shall respond. Once again, must do my duty to the truth.
Recently aboard Air Force One, a New York Times reporter had the gall to look around and see a lot of socialism coming from Barack Obama and ask Mr. Obama, President Obama.
Yeah, well, whatever. You should have a little, tiny bit of respect. I mean, you guys all whine and cry when somebody didn't, properly respect Reagan and the rest of these asshole Republicans. And then, as soon as somebody else is president, you play the same games. Oh yeah, let's not play pomp and circumstance or anything else. Hail to the chief, because now it's not a legitimate president, right? Didn't win the election by, oh yeah, it's millions and millions of votes. Unlike your guy, who used the court to cheat his way into office. Look, the whole idea of calling somebody a socialist, to use that kind of rhetoric, is just as bogus and irresponsible. I'm going to call it just flat out irresponsible, as throwing the word fascist around a little too loosely. It's bullshit.
Are you a socialist, as some people have suggested? Well, Obama seemed a little bit taken aback by this, and he said, well, the answer would be no. The reporter said, is there anything wrong with saying yes? And then Obama went on to him and haw about this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, well, you posted text that's barely readable. Let's just take a look at what he's done. We've essentially said that, number one, we're going to reduce non-defense discretionary spending to the lowest levels in decades. Yeah, so he's not going to feed the military-industrial complex. Oh my God, that's a socialist. Not giving Halliburton enough money is not, that's socialism, right? If you don't feed corporations doing nothing responsible with the money, that's socialism? No, I don't think so.
And give a basic professorial non-answer, which he's very good at. Obama, so disturbed by the question...
Yeah, well, professorial non-answer is better than moronic answers that George Bush gave.
For heaven's sakes, we can't have anyone thinking that I'm a socialist. Called the New York...
Well, look, the guy's a millionaire, all right? So right away you've got a problem calling somebody who's a millionaire an ideological socialist. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Then if you look at his policy, so far he's spent a ton of money doing the... if he's doing the trickle-up thing, it's not going to be apparent to anybody with any logic and reason, okay? At best, he's throwing the money in the middle somewhere and hoping some goes up and down. But he's certainly not, just because he's not doing the trickle-down thing, where he gives the money to the richest people in the world and expects it to trickle down, or expects this floating all boats crap to ever happen, like the ocean's going to get bigger somehow. I mean, we've seen the Reagan lies. Let's borrow and spend. I mean, what do you call borrowing and spending? If what's the opposite of socialist economics when it comes to, yes, let's borrow and spend, and let's borrow the money so we can give it to the richest people in the world so they can play the stock market? I mean, what is that?
Times reporter back to basically blame it all on Bush and say, oh, Bush is the socialist, not me.
Yeah, here's one thing that I was thinking about as I was getting on the copter, because it was hard for me to believe you were entirely serious about that socialist question.
Mm-hmm.
I did think it might be useful to point out that it wasn't under me that we started buying a whole bunch of shares of banks.
Yet in his...
Yeah, well, look at the policies over the years. Where you find these distinctions, there are political policies that you have to admit that every one of these guys is a politician, and he's playing his special interests. And so yes, you know that Obama's going to tend to know what his voting base is, and his voting base isn't the same voting base as your jackasses. Okay, so yeah, there's a different priority, but to call him a socialist is just idiotic. I mean, the biggest expenditure plan he's proposed, the money's going to private fucking businesses. I mean, a socialist would just say, yeah, we can make our own insurance company. A socialist would say, we can make our own goddamn bank. We don't need to buy a bank. We don't need to buy one even in bankruptcy. No, we can just open one friggin' tomorrow. Okay, Bank of America? Yeah, we'll take that name. What the hell?
Answer to Joe the Plumber's question. Joe the Plumber asked Obama on the campaign trail.
Why do you even want to bring up somebody like Joe the Plumber? I mean, so you know, even bring him up just points out what you are. Okay, Joe the Plumber doesn't even believe in Social Security. Okay, he'd rather old people went back not to having that $1,000 a month check, whoop-de-doo. He'd rather they go back to eating dog and cat food. So fuck you.
Hey, what if I was to buy a $250,000 plumbing business? How come you're going to tax me more? Obama basically says, well, I really believe in bottom-up spreading the wealth around.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't it make more sense? Yeah, you give the money to the poor people. If government's going to do something with money, it might as well give it to the workers and not the loafers. And so, look, there's a question you haven't dealt with from the last time, butthole. Why don't you deal with the inheritance question, okay? Why don't you explain Donald Trump and the Leona Helmsley and William Randolph Hearst and Forbes even? Even let's talk about Forbes. Is Forbes a good capitalist? What the hell? If socialism is evil, where do you put inheritance? Where do you put these pompous fuckers who just inherit the ownership, the capital, inherit control over the system? Where do you what's the word I can use for that? All right, that's properly derogatory, because there can't be anything that's more of a cheat than that is there? Or do you really believe in birthright? Are you really that sick a motherfucker?
Which is a socialist idea.
All right, wait, okay, if you're going to keep throwing this socialist word, I'm going to throw the word racist, and I'm going to throw the word fucking fascist. How's that? An elitist. I'll throw that one at you, too. So how's that? You're an elitist, racist, fascist motherfucker.
Taking from the rich and redistributing their income to the poor.
Nah, newsflash, hasn't happened. Still isn't going to happen under Obama for another 2 fucking years. This redistribution's butthole of income. Okay, what hasn't taken place is a redistribution of ownership. That's the key word here. Income is sort of irrelevant. What's really fucking relevant is who owns what.
My attitude is that if the economy is good for folks from the bottom up, it's going to be good for everybody. If you've got a plumbing business, you're going to be better off if you've got a whole bunch of customers who can afford to hire you. And right now, everybody's so pinched that business is bad for everybody.
Yeah, well, this is almost the perfect example. I mean, obviously, what's a better place for people to be working? Say, somebody who's a manual laborer. What's a better world for him? You know, gold plating toilets in mansions, okay, are putting water heaters in millions of other houses. I mean, obviously, there's more value in maintaining the households of regular human beings, in enhancing their lives with infrastructure and physical comforts that vastly improve their lives, than there is in gold plating a motherfucking toilet.
I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
In a 1991 radio interview on public radio in Chicago, Obama goes on and on about how the civil rights movement didn't do enough to redistribute income to...
Yeah, again, you're going to sit there, now you're going to go into the race issue. And, you know, even to bring up this issue, you fail. I mean, you fail dismally, all right? What do you think happened with those 100 years of slavery? What do you think went on? All right, people were kept ignorant, and all the fruits of their labor, all the value of their labor was taken from them. All right, every single bit of it, through chains, whips, guns, threat of death. All right, and so then we say, you're free. All right, big fucking deal. Okay, you're free, but we're not going to give you what you've earned over the last 100 years. We're not going to give you any legacy. And yet you will defend somebody like Forbes. You will defend somebody like even Helmsley. Just marry a rich man and then control New York City. You will defend these preposterous methods that people gain control over capital, and yet you can't understand why the American blacks deserved better than no mule and no acreage. I mean, fuck you.
To the poor, blacks in this case, it's a sort of racial socialism, Obama's brand.
But the Supreme Court never ventured into the issues of redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, well, look at the only blacks that ever got money weren't blacks who got it the regular way. They got it the show business way. All right, the showboaty way. All right, because there was no if they don't own the means of production, okay, they're not going to have a legacy they can hold on to. It's that simple. I mean, what is Bill Cosby kids going to get except for cash? All right, that they'll own some copyright to some of his material. They're not going to own the means of production through it. All right, it's a big fucking difference, you idiot.
And sort of more basic issues of political and economic justice in the society. And to that extent, as radical as I think people try to characterize the Warren Court, it wasn't that radical. It didn't break free from the essential constraints that were placed by the Founding Fathers in the Constitution, at least as it's been interpreted, and Warren Court interpreted it in the same way, that generally the Constitution is a charter of negative liberties, says what the states can't do to you, says what the federal government can't do to you, but it doesn't say what the federal government or the state government must do on your behalf. And that hasn't shifted. And one of the, I think, the tragedies of the civil rights movement was because the civil rights movement became so court-focused, I think that there was a tendency to lose track of the political and community organizing and activities on the ground that are able to put together the actual coalitions of power through which you bring about redistributive change. And in some ways, we still suffer from that.
Yeah, so all he's basically saying is, look, they went to the courts and they got a legal decision based on what the Constitution entitles human beings to, but they didn't do anything to fix the real problem, the on-the-street implications, consequences of what has gone on for hundreds of years, okay? First slavery and then grotesque discrimination. And it's, how can you possibly justify what the fuck has been went on? I mean, you're old enough, you've probably read enough to understand how the world worked. And you're gonna justify that and say there's no legacy to that behavior. There's no legacy that we are experiencing right now, and we don't even owe respect. I mean, you won't even give that much. You won't even give respect for the fucking goddamn fruits that you stole, essentially, that we are living on, the benefits we are living on as a society. You won't even respect that taking. Fuck you.
So he basically says, yeah, I'm a socialist in this radio interview, and the courts and the Founding Fathers didn't do enough proactively, and the Constitution doesn't do enough proactively to redistribute income to poor blacks and blacks that have been oppressed by the horrible American system, which no doubt they were for the longest time oppressed. The problem...
the problem. Yeah, we'll wait for the problem. I mean, this is just disgusting rhetoric. All right, there's nothing been black-focused about what Obama was doing. And if he's talking about people, he's usually talking about people, generally. All right, workers versus owners versus the elite wealthy. Come on. I mean, he's not even close to this label you're going to keep throwing at him of socialist. And yes, he's a black man. He's half black, so he has a little bit of appreciation, maybe more than you do, certainly. For the fact that we never really paid our past bills. Just like we have this huge deficit that we never paid. We never paid that past bill either.
The problem is they're not anymore. The problem is this is so 1960s Saul Alinsky. Speaking of 1960s Saul Alinsky and socialism.
What a coincidence. First you pick on a black guy and now you're going to pick on a Jew. Isn't that interesting? And you have the gall to sit there and use words loosely. You goddamn Nazi-esque, racist, fascist jackass.
Really influenced Barack Obama during his lifetime, politically speaking. It was socialist, radical, community organizer Saul Alinsky.
Yeah, what a draconian Rushkin-esque force, right? I mean, he pulled out his tanks and just ran the people over to impose his doctrine on them. Yeah, that's right. He attempted to converse and organize human beings for their own welfare, to, like, create labor unions. What a fucking horror!
From Chicago, Illinois. Dun-da-da! Saul Alinsky, an American community organizer and writer. Sound like Obama?
Yeah, I wonder what your Wikipedia article would look like. You know, pizza boy fucktard, radical racist Looney Tune, you know, who made videos on Vloggerheads, who really had, who must have a tiny, tiny penis, and, you know, must have inherited his life, because he has to keep justifying that. Probably never did a real day's work in his life, if anything. If he did anything, it probably had something to do with stealing money out of somebody's fucking pocket. A real game fucking player.
From Chicago. In Rules for Radicals, which Alinsky wrote about community organizing.
I mean, just amazing, this guilt by association crap. So now Obama has to explain everything this guy ever said in his life, right? Everything this guy ever said in his life, he's going to have to explain. Is that how you play the game? I mean, why don't you bring up Obama's nephews or uncles or somebody else? I mean, why don't you just keep playing that game? I mean, man, you are a petty fucker.
And redistributing wealth in 1971, which Barack Obama closely followed. And
yeah, well, at least you got the words right. Redistributing wealth, redistributing ownership, which in most cases is not fucking earned.
Probably still does follow, it sounds like, as a racial socialist, Obama that is. Alinsky
as and you are a racist, fascist, Nazi. Yeah, we'll just keep using that rhetoric. God, fuck you and your rhetoric.
He says there's another reason for working inside the system. Dostoevsky said that taking a new step is what people fear most. Any revolutionary change must be preceded by a passive, affirmative, non-challenging attitude toward change among the mass of our people. Boy, this is all sounding hauntingly familiar.
Yeah, it could sound like any social psychologist, philosopher is going to speak the same rhetoric. There's a certain psychology to human beings, and there's certain ways that you have to communicate with them to organize them and to move them progressively to a new future. Okay, change is always hard. Just look how hard it was for women to get the vote. Something so fucking simple and obvious. Look what it took to unfree the slaves, you idiot. Okay, look what that change took. It took, you know, hundreds of thousands per capita, the bloodiest war in American history, the bloodiest motherfucking war in American history, okay, to do something as simple as say, yes, that's a human being and you can't fucking chain it up.
Passive, non-challenging change. They must feel so frustrated, so defeated, so lost, so futureless in the prevailing system that they're willing to let go of the past and change the future. That sounds hauntingly familiar, too, with all the catastrophizing Obama has been doing.
Yes, Obama's been catastrophizing? What a joke. The guy's been, in my opinion, lying through his teeth, okay, to avoid saying the truth. And the truth is we are thoroughly fucked by your goddamn capitalist morons who fucking borrowed and spent our fucking country into huge debt and encouraged it, okay, kept interest rates low, encouraged people to buy homes so they could make all this rhetoric that Americans are homeowners. Well, apparently Americans weren't homeowners after all, were they? So all that Reagan Bush rhetoric of how prosperous America was just a pile of crap, because their prosperity was all built out of fucking borrowed money.
about the economy the past couple of weeks and all the massive socialistic programs and redistribution of wealth type crazy programs that they hope.
Yeah, right. And where is it? Okay, like I said, it doesn't even, you gotta wait 2 years for it to show up, okay? That redistribution thing ain't gonna fucking happen, all right? So a real socialist, if I was fucking president, guess what? Yes, the income tax, you'd be paying it tomorrow. It'd be back up at 70 fucking goddamn 5%.
Don't go to white construction workers that he's been doing, spending trillions of dollars on roads and bridges, quote unquote. Anyway,
what does that mean? I mean, what does that, roads and bridges, quote unquote, what does that mean? I mean, why should those words be ominous? You know, that's that infrastructure thing. We all heard about that. We've seen it. All right, and all that money is going to end up going to local communities, okay, and counties and cities. They'll get a lot of that money because they'll do some of the contracting. So what's your big fear here? Who's stealing all that money? Who's gonna, what bureaucrat's gonna be just sitting around laughing, ha ha, I stole Pizza Boy?